Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Next to Madison. On today's episode, we are talking about the future of mankind. A lot of us don't know what the future holds. The advances in technology and all these different things going to space, different to the moon, back to the moon, to different planets. How is the future going to look and what's in store for not only us, but for our future generations to come? And so I'm very honored to be able to sit down with an accomplished senior ranking Pakistani government official. He's a diplomat to the United States, a space technologist, a World Bank advisor, honorary Naval Commander. He's educated across 3 continents. This guy is amazing, and he's here to kind of tell us what he thinks about the future of mankind. So with that being said, I'd like to bring on my guest on Next to Madison. Please welcome Dr. Tariq Mustafa. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Madison.
So I'm so happy that you're here. So let's talk about this. What does it mean to you, the future of mankind? Where do you see us going?
Well, that is a question which is often asked, in fact, that what is this future of mankind, humankind? We are only one amongst 8 billion, and you can't influence it. So why should we be worried about it? And in that connection, I can think of 2 viewpoints which I'd like to quickly bring up.
Mm-hmm.
One is a traditional person, happens to be a Red Indian sage from America, and the other one would be a modern technologist. So talking about the Red Indian sage, they have a saying that if you consume something which is not renewed, such as crops or fruit or things like that, then it is equivalent to your borrowing something from your grandchildren with no intention of returning it. So what would you think about such a person? So what a wise, I think, commentary. And they understood this because they were living close to nature.
Mm-hmm.
Our approach is different. And the second approach, the modern approach, is the technologist Elon Musk, who is now aiming for Mars. Humans have already been to the moon. NASA has done an excellent job, but he's now intent in going up to Mars, colonizing Mars, in fact.
Yeah.
But one wonders, have we thought about how things will work out there? Because he's not going to be alone. Maybe he'll be in the lead, but he'll be followed quickly by the Chinese and perhaps by the Russians. And our neighbor India is also warming up. Mr. Modi is worrying less about COVID in India and more about their prospect on Mars. So the point is that, okay, you go there, but then what happens? Has anybody thought about that? Will we just import what our relationship on this earth has been? One of conflict, one of boundaries, one of wars?
Yeah.
Or is there a better model? And if there is, why don't we talk about it? We all know that you can't do this thinking when you're in the driving seat. You can only do the thinking when you have the time, like we are now talking,
Mm-hmm.
free of pressures, you see.
Yes.
So once you are into the programs, once you are out there, we are fighting about Antarctica. We have been fought about America when it was discovered. So our tradition is that way, the survival of the fittest, the strongest. So will we take that out there? The answer is that won't work.
No.
So then what's the alternative? Who is thinking about it? So that's where, for me, thinking about the future of humankind is extremely important. And it has to be done in an institutional manner, which is not being done as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
That's the worry. And we don't have to say the mess we have made on this. And the question is that the challenges which are facing humankind here on earth are well known. We've all heard about environmental damage and population explosion and super weapons, atomic weapons, biological weapons, and now cyber warfare. There are
Yeah.
drones, rise of extremism, and things like that. And now there is COVID. The question is, where are the answers? We all know this, but why have we not been able to come up? And my submission is that our model is wrong. The model that we have been following is an old one. The model was introduced by Europe, this what Mr. Kissinger calls the Westphalian model of nationalism. When the Martin Luther gave his revolutionary ideas about the church, and then there was struggle between Catholicism and Protestants.
Hmm.
There was a 30 years war. Different figures are there, but very large number of Europeans died in those wars. So
Yeah.
then they decided to come to senses, to terms. And that's where the Westphalian peace concept was developed, that we divvy up the continent and we don't interfere into each other, you see. But that is now old. Technology has overturned that model. Technology today is no boundaries. Satellites, there are no boundaries set for satellites.
Right.
Internet, is there any boundary, you see? So how can we continue with that old model into the new situation? So my submission is that we need to review and change our model. And the new model has to be universal. It, we simply cannot continue with the old model.
So when you say change the model, what would your idea be for this new model?
The new model clearly would mean that you have to work together, you have to work in consultation. This was attempted after World War I by League of Nations, failed miserably. Second time again, after the Second World War, the United Nations, high hopes, Eleanor Roosevelt, your Mr. Wendell Willkie, America was in the front, an honest effort was made, but I think our prejudices come in the way. Again, the big powers, we all know the story, Cold War,
Yeah.
America, Russia, and America was the stronger party, tried to put a ring around the Soviet Union. So the UN could not really do what it was meant or supposed to do for many, many reasons. The very concept of having Security Council and veto, those are not things. Again, that model is now outdated, you see. It will not work. So this is where a person like Einstein, he said that we need a paradigm shift in our values and attitudes. Unless we can tackle things at that level, you cannot solve the problems which are created by one model
Right.
by the next model. You see, but it is unfortunate, at least I am not aware, that Einstein had the opportunity or the time to write much about it. He made this very interesting, very important analysis, but then he didn't do any filling up. And
Yeah.
in a humble way, I have been trying to do that filling up. I have worked out a list of 20 points. Now, we can't talk of 20 points here, you see, but we can touch on a couple of things. And I would invite people later on, if those who are interested, that we can share this information. In fact, this is my hope that more and more people will pay attention to this and come up with their ideas. How? We know very well that UN in its current form is nothing but uh, um, a debating society, if you like,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Nations there simply talk of their interests and their viewpoints, you see. So
Uh-huh.
it does not serve the purpose. The purpose was that it should have been a joint platform where people would put their heads together and consult each other and work out a way of sharing this earth of ours. And imagine what can happen if we can do that. And I dare say, I would submit to our geniuses like Elon Musk that
Yeah.
it's not a technological problem. It's relatively easy to go to Mars. Relatively, I say. More difficult is how do we handle each other? How do we manage and deal with each other, whether we are on Earth or on Mars, you see. So I don't know if anybody knows what are his thoughts on the subject, but more people need to think about it, you see. So we what is the alternate to getting together? The alternate is that one country becomes supreme power. And in a way, America got that chance. America was well suited. If there is any country which has the background, it is US. You have people from different races, different continents, different languages. What better model? But at the same time, uh, uh, one can't help saying what happened when the Soviet Union broke up in the 80s. Then we had in America the views of Huntington, Clash of Civilizations,
Yeah.
Obama, the New World Order, Elder Bush. That was a hegemonic model. Sorry to say.
Mm-hmm.
That was a golden opportunity to take the real lead. You don't talk in terms of make America great again. You play the big brother. That was a chance. And one could have led the world. But you know better than I do, all of us, where America got entangled 30 years. What happened into Middle East? What for?
Yeah.
So while America was busy, Chinese got the chance.
Right.
And with America's help, I
I,
think people don't understand. It didn't happen despite America, it happened with active help.
yeah.
The American private enterprise, your capitalist system, the captains of industry, they were only interested in their profits.
Yeah.
And the labor there was cheap. They didn't mind sharing technology with China. So I even go to the extent of saying that America actively helped the rise of China as a rival, as a manufacturing hub for the world.
Oh,
So,
they certainly did.
the point here is that we have to uh, think in larger terms. And that is where, and it's not that people haven't thought about it. Just, I remember visiting your Jefferson Memorial on the mall. What does it say on the rotunda? It's a self evident truth that all, it says men, but I'm sure he meant humans,
Yep.
are born equal. And that was what, 200 years ago, even more than that. But have we behaved like that? Even Jefferson had slaves. So, it's one thing. You are forced by the system. You don't have the freedom to do what you like. Your environment guides you. So, we have to tackle here, you see. No longer
Absolutely.
my country right or wrong. Those days are gone.
Yeah. No,
Allowed in.
that makes sense because China really is kind of the global threat right now. And,
Mhm.
it's, what they're now saying that, COVID could have been released in the lab, used as a bioweapon, which evidence looks like it's pointing in that direction. And now they're saying, it came out recently that if Xi Jinping, I think is how you say his name, said if you launch an investigation into this, we'll threaten you with nuclear war. I mean, it's
Will that solve anything? I doubt it. Look, China has had it good. If I were a Chinese, why would I change things? In fact, America has allowed me to grow. So
Mhm.
it's in my interest to let things continue. Time is in the, can't we see that? Who is growing at a better rate? China's growth is still pretty high. Why would they change that? They're not silly people. Please remember.
Right.
They've, so it's easy to say that. I don't think they want to disturb the status quo, but they don't also want to bend down to anyone. We have to share this. There is now no question. If we cannot work out a sharing system, we will not exist for long.
So,
As simple as
and that's a great point. But the problem that I see from my how I'm seeing it is you have all these leaders of all these different countries, but what you're really dealing with is massive egos. So
Mhm.
that's where your real challenge really is. You've
Yep.
got these leaders that, I'm better, we're better, it's blah, 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 blah. So it's like, how this all sounds great. How do you sit down and logically work together so we have a beautiful future? But these egos at play are going to prevent that. So do we
Very,
just somehow
very,
drain the
yeah.
swamp, so to say, and start over somehow? I mean, it's like, what do you
Well,
do?
my proposal to that is that, in fact, we'll kill two birds with one stone, that the UN Secretary General should kind of nominate an advisory sages council of elder statesmen or even younger people who
Hmm.
have a record of universalist thinking, like our South African president, Nkrumah, no, yeah, what was the name?
I
You know,
can't think of it off
I'm
the top of
now
my head.
57, so sometimes he slipped my mind.
Yeah.
But the point is, people who have shown through their experience and actions that they don't just think in terms of their country, but there are European leaders. I would say even the German prime minister sort of falls in that category. So if they are made into an advisory body to the Secretary General sitting in the United Nations, now they will see to it that the opportunist leaders do not get the floor. You see, there will be saner voices. So if we go about it, I think if we through a process of consultation, if we can't, after all, in families, don't we? How do we manage conflict? How do we manage conflict within Democrats and Republicans? I mean, you've seen what is happening today. Things
Yeah.
are getting out of hand. That's not a good sign.
No.
The strongest country, if the most organized country, in a way, is going away from democratic norms, then things are serious, you see. So
Oh, they're
we
very serious. And it's our leaders here in America that are dividing us.
well, there you are. So that is the paradigm shift is that we think in universal terms. We think in terms of humanity, the welfare of humanity, not our personal terms. Now, what is happening? If there is one thing which worries me, it is common to all the big powers. It's the rise in the number of billionaires. It's happening all around and it's increasing. What will happen when 1% of the people control over 50% of the wealth of the world? Somehow, this is not right, is it? I mean, do we need to argue on the subject? And
Yeah.
what
But
is
the whole
being
the whole thing too is, obviously you want the billionaires to pay their fair share and stuff like that, but you also want to create a system like a capitalist society where people are innovating and they're hungry to create and a better
by all
planet. So they're
by all means?
incentivized. But the problem is I think the billionaires have gotten maybe too big. Um, and they're
So
controlling stuff, like they're controlling, for example, like in America, they're controlling our elections.
you said it.
Yeah.
You said
And
it.
it's not fair. They should not be able to donate to elections anymore.
Okay. So these are things which we can talk about.
Hmm.
But This has to be looked at seriously. This cannot, that is what I keep saying. The model is wrong. We are headed the wrong way. We have to review things. You cannot curb initiative. There must be competition. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
But competition with cooperation. And I dare say that there is no accountability these days. You see, freedom of choice is very good. Freedom of choice must be there. It is fundamental right. Everybody agrees with that.
Yes.
But at the same time, there has got to be accountability. We have to put it into the system. In other words, we are responsible for our actions. You
Yeah.
cannot get away, and actions have their consequences. So that moral aspect, we cannot get away from it. Technology and science does not mean that you move away from moral. If in the end morality is the basis of society, if we don't talk of moralities, then I am afraid this situation will keep on getting worse.
And what do you think would happen if it just kept going on the way it was going on? Do you think that we're near extinction, humanity?
Certainly, today we are so many fingers on the triggers. Even a country like mine, Pakistan, has nuclear weapons. Now we maintain we did it because of threats. But the point is, the more the fingers, the less the security. You see? So again, the world body, the international body, some kind of a rejuvenated, improved United Nations, that can be the only way. You see, there is simply no other way. Like you have to consult each other. Without consultation, you cannot find the problem, solve the problem. So, whatever that model, and it's not all that far removed. I think there are voices which are sort of realizing that. And in the end, when you see the choice is here between either self destruction or cooperation, we'll
Yeah.
find a way. After all, if we want to go to Mars, if we want to go to the stars, and nature has given us the powers, we have been given this brain. This brain is a very powerful thing. It can take us. But in that, consultation, accountability, morality will have to play an important role. No, they are not playing that role today.
No.
And this is why I keep talking of paradigm shift. This is what I think was on Einstein's mind. You cannot let technology take charge totally. We have to see. At the moment, things are not in our control. We think we are masters, but are we?
No.
All the things which have taken place in the past generation, they've happened. They've happened by their own force mechanism. You see.
Yeah.
So that is the point. If we bring in these elements, universalism, cooperation, competition, freedom, yes, but freedom with this realization of accountability. In the end, this is what we have to control. Not control in the wrong sense, but guide, demonstrate, teach. After all, schools are meant to teach things. So if we teach them the correct attitude, then I at least cannot help feeling that without morality, the foundation is lacking, it's missing. And this is unfortunate, but that's the way we are headed.
So, how does somebody like you help to change this model?
Now that's the, what do they say, $6 million question?
Yeah.
I think in the end, it is education. These things, either it is revolution or it is gradual change through education. And revolution today is probably not the route to be taken because of the risks, because of the power which even lone individuals may soon have the power to disrupt world systems. Could anybody have imagined that some outside power or some individual could interfere with America's elections? And yet, your leaders today say that something like that happened, you see.
Yes, right.
What my fear is that technology is developing, and soon we may find you mentioned COVID. Now, that's another weapon, you see. Now, what would be the defense against that? If we really go at each other's throats like that, plague was used as a weapon in the Middle Ages also. 1/3 of Europe died because of plague in the 14th century. So these are not new things. It
Yeah.
can happen. It can happen again easily. Because while we think that we have, and we do have indeed a lot of technology, but the side effects of technology are not known. China made a one-child policy. What happened? They tied themselves in knots
Yeah.
of two childs. Now they're speaking of three.
Yes.
So science is fine in physical systems where we can set up an experiment. We can control the variables. That's the methodology of science. And
Yes.
we repeat the experiment till we find out how the behavior of the thing is. But when it comes to social systems, you can't control the variables. What happened in the prohibition in Chicago in the 20s? I mean, people did that because they thought that was the right thing to do. But
Mhm.
soon they found that the negative effects, the mafia stepped in, started taking advantage, you see,
Yeah.
and had to come back. So, what I'm trying to say is, let's not think that the methods of science can be transferred to the methods of social systems. Social systems have their own dynamics. That takes generations. So, if we want to go into space, if we want, then we have to learn to work together. And I come back, so long as United Nations is dependent on contributions from richer countries, so long as there is a veto power, it cannot really work effectively. It must be given its own resources. What is Antarctica doing? Are we going to fight over Antarctica? I would say give it to the body. Deep oceans, satellite orbits, the moon, even Mars. Instead of conflict, why don't we create a body with the resources? Now, one of the major is the inequalities which are arising, the billionaires, you see.
Yeah.
Or the countries, the poorer countries, the difference between the richer and the poorer countries is increasing. Now,
Yeah. There's no middle class, it seems, anymore.
okay, now do we deprive the richer countries in order to bring up the poorer countries? No, that would be not natural, not fair.
Yes.
So, my solution is let us create a fund where these unutilized resources of the earth are given over to a human body type of body, and those proceeds are then used to bring up the developing country. In other words,
Yeah.
advanced countries don't slow down, they don't have to pay, but we help, we hold the developing countries by their hands and assist them in the process. So instead of arguing that the Europeans took the resources of North America, South America, or the colonies, well, that happened in the past. We can't undo it.
Yeah.
But we can certainly do this. What prevents us? The income from satellite orbits, let it go to the developing countries. That will not harm uh, the rise, because the fact is that even the average person today in this century has the facilities which kings did not have few centuries back.
Yeah.
Is that not a fact? We have in transportation, you can today go around the world.
Yeah.
In education, through Wikipedias and Googles, sitting in your office today, one can go around. Look at us. We are chatting. We are having a conference without even moving out, you see. Now, what a blessing that is, you see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But the point is equally that the side effects are also there. And unless we are aware of that, and unless we do something, so we have got to, I mean, there is no choice, I think, that and get the better people there. After all, your President Kennedy started the Peace Corps.
Mhm.
That was with good intent. It was to bring out the better feelings amongst people. There is a feeling of service. I think people can be found. I would not share that all people are crooks. No,
No.
many of us, we would like to serve. So mobilize. Let us mobilize ourselves.
Yeah.
That's where the challenge is.
I know. And it's a very uphill battle because again, when you
It,
talk about the social aspect, you're dealing with massive egos. And the problem that we talked about, earlier with some of these billionaires is that they're just, they have no accountability. They're just able to manipulate things in their favor through their money.
okay.
Very
Agree.
skewed
Now,
system.
I didn't want to sort of bring in religion as such, but I'd like to ask a question.
Mhm.
I'm talking about future of humankind, but let me ask about myself. I'm now 87. What happens to me after death? How many people think about it?
I
Is
mean,
there
I
some,
do. Because I believe in, heaven and God, and I'm going to, eternal peace.
if you do, then there is the answer.
Yeah,
Then that is more important than what you amass here, you see. That is the basis of
100%.
morality. That is the so morality is the anchor on which I think all these problems will ultimately be solvable.
Yeah, and that's a great point because sometimes I see, some of these leaders of these countries and how they operate and how they treat their people and just how they treat themselves or just the people around them. And I think to myself, these people, they act like they're never going to die. Like
Exactly.
they act like this life here is everything when this life here is such a small portion. Like they're not doing a very good job of earning credits into their eternal life. And I thought about that. If more people actually realized that they were going to die and there was consequences after that based on your actions of how you treated humanity, it would be a much better place. But I do feel that these evil people, they think that this is it. The morality really isn't there.
In Madison, you've given me a candidate for the United Nations.
Me.
You. Yeah.
I'm
People with
in.
these- yeah. People with these ideas. That's what we need.
Yeah.
If they can come forth, and anybody who is aware and conscious of what goes happens after death, I think will be a far more balanced, responsible citizen. He will not, before he takes advantage of others. No, the golden rule, it's nothing new. We have known this sages and ages ago.
Uh-huh.
All religions speak of it. That one simple, if that can be promoted, I think we are well on the way to solution. So I think situation isn't hopeless. Let's not look at it that way. But it is challenging, no doubt.
Hmm.
And I have to submit that currently it appears we are not headed the right way.
Not at all. But it's the thing is, you see it in all these advances in technology, which is great. You and I can have a conversation. We're not even in the same country right now. We're not even in the same time zone. That's amazing. Cars can park themselves. If you're a really bad parallel parker, well, now you can spend some extra money and have a car do it for you. The planes and the computer, like all that is amazing. But then there's just this downside of it, and we are going to a place where humans aren't really connecting anymore because of technology. People are always on their phones. You go out to a restaurant now and there'll be a group of people sitting together. they've taken time to get ready, to go out, to be together, and half of them are on their telephones. I always have my telephone in my bag, on mute, and away from me when I'm with other people, because I know how it feels when somebody else is checking their phone when I'm with them. And so I make a conscious effort to do that. But most people don't. And God, I have to text a friend now to say, can I call you? I can't just call them. So humanity is just totally kind of, it's not as close as it was meant to be and intended, and for it to intended to be, and what we need to strive. And now we're just kind of so separated. And then you've got the rise of social media, which has caused people to feel so badly about themselves and create a world that's not even real. I mean, they're taking pictures with, have you heard this? They're taking pictures with toilet seats right here, so it looks like they're on a private jet. I mean, this is where the this is where the world has gone, and people are marrying robotic sex dolls instead of having a real relationship. So yeah, we're in trouble. We're in huge trouble.
Yeah. So you've said it. This is why I say that technology is taking over, you see.
Yeah.
It is becoming the driving force. It is a good thing, but we cannot lose control. So humanity has to remain in charge, you see. And that comes through the moral systems, which we have ignored, are being ignored more and more. We think, yeah, that we are masters. Up to a point, yes, indeed. But then COVID comes along and teaches us a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
There are things which, they remind you that there is more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah.
We must remain humble. Humility is one thing. And I'm afraid again, today's leaders are moving in the opposite direction. Is that not so? Look at today, there were earlier leaders of a much better caliber, I dare say. And today's leadership leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, I feel today's leadership is all about power.
Yeah.
They say things that they think the people want to hear to get elected, and then once they're elected, they backtrack or fail to do those things that got them elected. So it's all a power thing. And maybe that leader wants to, and maybe that leader is a good person and does have some morality, but they're so controlled. And that need for power is so deep that they just can't act on their moral compass, and they're acting on ego. And that's why I think we're so divided in such an ugly place in society right now. Is because
Again, America has an advantage. You have a tradition of holding your leaders responsible. Your Republican traditions, I think, make you again ideally suited for leadership in that role. But again, party politics goes in the opposite direction.
I always thought, I know it's like I thought the two-party system was always was the downfall. Because people, I have a friend that is in one party, but if you talk to her, all her ideologies are with the other party, but she goes with that. So nothing like makes sense. And she's divided because she feels she has to align or say she's with this party. And then I have other friends who are like, I can't say I'm with that party because people will shun me. And it's like, I don't even know if it's possible to ever get rid of this two-party system in America, but I think it would change everything.
Yeah. Well, if you look at, the democratic principle is 51% gets the way. But is it right? Can you ignore 49%, you see? Clearly, this was not meant to be. The purpose was not to ignore the opposition. The purpose was work with the opposition. But that spirit, you see, has been lost. So again, it comes down to attitudes and values. So we said, should you behave like an owner? Or as the Red Indian said, behave like the trustee. A trustee's role is different from that of the owner. Our billionaires of today act like owners, as if things are theirs. But
Yeah.
a trustee's approach would be to make use of things, but you leave it for the future generation, for the next generations.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So this is the kind of, I have drafted out a list of 20 such points, and I would welcome, I can make available those, whoever are interested, and I would urge them to take a look at those points. They may like to revise them, change them, add to them, modify them, but we have got to build a consensus on those value systems, the new paradigm, which hopefully will be more responsive to these challenges and provide us a kind of win-win situation.
Yeah.
Because again, we should not be despondent. The world is not bad unless we make it so.
Exactly.
And the universe is available. And people like Mr. Elon Musk, I would say, we don't just go after technology, but also go after the value systems, the morality part. I'm not suggesting that he is not thinking on those terms, only we don't hear about it. So a mind like that, active person like that, I think can make a lot of difference. But
Huge.
yeah, so they must mobilize resources, and hopefully the situation will be improved.
Yes, that's all we can do is just hope. I mean, I always keep my faith in the greater power. For me, it's God, and just knowing that as much as it seems like things are out of control, that what keeps me at peace is that he's in control, and I believe that, and I operate that, and I so it's like, you try to just let go of the things you can't control, but you also, while you're here, one of your jobs as a human is to make an impact on humanity. And
Yeah.
so, whether you do that through a business or through community service or donating to charities or whatnot, um, is important. But I think it's important for more of our quote unquote, business leaders to kind of step up and not just maybe talk about just the business aspect, but also about the humanitarian aspect of it.
Very right. And
Yeah.
I think your America's founding fathers gave a league, they gave a constitution.
Hmm.
It's that thing is revised, improved, brought up to date, if you like, to consider the current situation. But that spirit should be brought back, you see. They were wonderful people.
Spirit's gone.
Yeah.
It's like what, I think what happened is ego and power got in the way.
Yeah.
And you put ego and power in, and everything's just going to be ruined. Instead of working, as a team, people just become very divided. So you talk about these 20 points. How would somebody get access to these? Is there a website they can go to?
Yes, we could do that, or I have an email. If I am approached on that, I can simply forward them. The list is available.
Okay, so we can do an email, or can you also put it on a website and then we can put the link in the show notes?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm sure.
perfect. Because I think people, after hearing this conversation, would like to know more. Who are you? Are you talking to anyone of the leaders right now to try to get your ideas more, instituted, so to say?
I am very much. In fact, I have an idea which I was trying to place. I'm a fan of Papa Francis. Pope. I think he has his heart and mind in the right place.
Okay.
He is today in a position I'm not talking of him as a leader of the Catholics, but as a person, with the correct spirit. He, according to my information, he doesn't live in the Palace of Vatican. He lives with the Jesuits in a humble quarter, you see, relatively.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that speaks a lot for him, you see. He's not
Absolutely.
ambitious like the earlier popes, you see.
Mhm.
So, and I had a proposal for his consideration. You know what happened in Turkey? This Hagia Sophia, the cathedral mosque of Constantinople,
Yeah.
which the Ottomans conquered from the Byzantines 5 centuries ago. That has now been, reconverted into a mosque, you see.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of bad feeling amongst the Orthodox and the Turks. But at the same time, what people forget is that there has been bad feeling within the Christian church, Orthodox versus the Catholics, which is 1,000 years old, which Papa Francis is trying to sort out, you see.
Okay.
And there is a way that that can be done. We can kill two birds with one stone, because while there is a cathedral mosque, Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, there is another cathedral mosque in Cordoba in Spain, which was built by the Muslim Arabs.
Okay.
And this was taken over by the Crusaders around the 13th century.
Uh-huh.
In fact, this idea of making the other side's cathedral into a mosque or mosque into a cathedral was started by the Crusaders. So, my proposal is that Pope Francis is in a crucial position that he can kill two birds with one stone if that cathedral mosque of Cordoba can be given to the Islamic community, and they in return make the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople available to the Christian church, and then the Papa Francis presents it to the Orthodox. So, what will this do, you see?
Mhm.
This bad feeling amongst the Orthodox and Catholics will be cooled down,
Yeah.
because the Pope would have helped the Orthodox get back their cathedral from the Turks. And it will help feelings between the Muslims and Christians of Europe that they were given back this cathedral mosque of Cordoba. And that place is collecting dust.
Yeah.
The Crusaders put a pew in that, you see, but nobody is using that. So here is an asset which can be put to use. We need to bring the temperatures down, you see,
Yeah.
instead of heating up like in Palestine. We need to move the other way around. We need to talk of the commonalities of the Abrahamic faiths. Jews, Christians, and Muslims are brothers, cousins.
Yeah. I
Did we
agree.
ever hear about that, you see? We hear about their conflict. Abraham is a revered prophet for all three,
Yeah.
and yet they're at each other's throats. So let's try to reverse this trend, you see. And again, it's a question of right leadership. And this idea, and I think Pope can take the lead here, because he is sitting in the, otherwise, if I go, the Spanish government will say, what will we get in return if we make available this Cordoba mosque to the Muslims? What do we get in return? But if Pope does it, then the situation is different. He will hand over the Cathedral Mosque of Constantinople to the Orthodox. They'll be happy.
Yeah.
Muslims and Turks will get back the Cordoba Mosque. So it's a good feeling.
Yeah.
So we are honoring
Yeah.
the good feelings, you see. So
Yeah.
let's try that approach, you see. And if there can be good feelings amongst the Orthodox, the Catholics, and the Muslims, I think straight away we have prepared a ground on which we can invite our Jewish brothers that come on, let's get to the Abrahamic platform. So
Yeah.
let's try these things, you see. What's wrong with that?
I agree. So have you had any conversations with the Pope yet?
No, I have sent the thing, but the trouble is you know, he's an Italian speaker. His English is not up to the mark, and things go through his staff, and staff has all kinds of ideas. You see, there the response we've received is, why don't, who will bell the cat? Who starts the process? You see? In other words, you come to us rather than again a parochial approach. I'm sorry, the the management of the church is not in line with Pope Francis' high ideals. You see, so
Oh
they
no,
they
the Catholic Church is one of the most profitable businesses out there. It's insane.
you said it, and
Yeah,
everybody knows about the bank. I don't want to get into those matters; those concern them. But my point was that you cannot, this. I doubt whether my idea has actually been fully seen and understood by Pope Francis, because it passes through channels. You see, and
yes,
the don't put up. They would have put up a translated version to him in Italian, and what that translation would have said, who knows?
yeah,
So I wish I could get a chance if somebody has the connection, the means, the resources. In COVID, I would go and present myself just to present the ideas. I don't want an audience. I'm not the type who wants publicity, but
yeah,
I want that the idea must reach in its pristine form before Pope Francis, so
yeah,
that we start moving in the right direction. The trouble is, all the wrong news gets the publicity.
yeah. It's true.
So, so we have to start somewhere. So let's take the steam out of this confrontations. And whatever resources, the earth is still large enough for not 8, but even 10 billion people can be accommodated. We can even, as Elon Musk is trying to do, we can populate the planets also.
Yeah.
So, it is there, but we have to rise up to it. No, not with our today's mentality. Sorry.
Yes. Well, that's interesting that you said we have, 8 billion and there's room for 10 billion, but, people like Bill Gates who are trying to depopulate, saying, oh, we've got to reduce the population. And, he's become a very scary creature because of that. Like, what planet is he living on?
He may have, he's done good things also. So, uh, but the point here is that it's again, the spirit matters. Those values and attitudes have to change. I
Yeah.
repeat, one is in conflict. I remember when we were children, at times we got into scrap with each other. You see, so I would put my hand over the hand of my neighbor. Just like this. You see,
Uh-huh.
sooner or later he would touch me, and I would say, "Ah, you started it. You touched me, and I'm going to get you." Although I was the culprit and I had done, you see what I'm getting at, you see.
Yes.
So instead of that, if we go towards cooperative rule, like I said, amongst the Catholics, and is there any cause that after 1,000 years, I'm sure Papa Francis would be the first to agree. He has extended his hand, but it's just a matter of start walking along that path, you see.
Yes,
Use
absolutely.
the get into good feelings about each other. We are sharing this earth.
It's
We
true.
can, with good feeling. As I said, uh, we don't want to pull down the billionaires. Let them have their own choice. But we want to raise up the others and let those resources be made available.
Yeah, exactly. We want to encourage people to, help guide them so they can get on their
Let
feet
help
and
guide
become prosperous. And that's the whole,
as
guide people.
through the United Nations system, despite its weaknesses, we can. And uh, if sort of due effort is paid, then I'm sure people are around who would rise up to the occasion. When they see something good being done, a lot of people will join.
Yes,
It's a question of making available that opportunity instead
exactly.
of selfishly of ourselves. Let's give our. I think the younger people are much more amenable and motivated if they really see good leadership and a good cause. We've all been through that phase, you see, when we wanted to do things. But so let us provide them.
Yes. No, it's perfectly said. So yeah, we'll have your website and your email and everything in the show notes. But we do have to wrap up. But this has been great. I mean, this is a lot of things to think about, and I want to see the 20 points for sure, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners do as well. But yeah, I think you guys, through this whole interview, what we've really kind of captured is that it's so important to be kind to each other, and just remember there is something we all have in common. Not only that we're human beings and that we share this planet, but we're all going to die. And if you kind of keep that in mind, you'll be able to keep yourself in check and also really understand what's important in life, which isn't amassing and owning everything, but about inspiring and building each other up, and just be kind to each other. And this was an amazing interview. Thank you.
Madison, you have said things which I wanted to say. Compassion.
Yes.
Absolute. Without compassion, justice, but with compassion. The
Yeah.
purpose is not to
And
win
empathy.
somebody. Exactly. The purpose is to improve them,
Hmm.
not to. So these are all points covered in my 20 points. And I'd love to see people add to it, you see, or contribute to it so that it becomes a joint effort. I don't want to put my name to it. I'm more interested that a platform, a program, something which is subscribed to by people comes forth, you see, a joint collective effort. You see. Thank you very much.
I think this is amazing, you guys. And you can find all the information on Dr. Tariq Mustafa on the website. And thank you so much for being my guest. And for everybody listening at home, I appreciate you. And we'll see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@next2madison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.